Welcome back to the Pursuit of Accuracy. I'm Josh. Today we're going to be talking about the things that no one tells you about precision rimfires. Now this is going to be a little bit controversial, and yeah, you got the CZ457 out here. This is my custom build because we're going to be shooting with the trigger cam just because it's my channel and I want to shoot, and I'm going to bring you guys along for the ride as we talk about some of these things. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, that's pretty simple. We're going to be talking about diminishing returns on precision rimfires. We're going to be talking about them for precision rimfire scopes. We're also going to be talking about precision rimfire barrels, the aftermarket barrels that you can buy. And all these talking points I'm bringing up because these are from answering your guys' questions over the last 2 to 3 years, seeing the common misconceptions about precision rimfires, barrels, ammunition, optics, those kind of things. And again, it's going to be a little controversial, but again, it is also just my opinion. If you have a different opinion, feel free to voice that down in the comments below. I do not hate that at all. I like to have interactive conversations with you guys. And at the end of the day, I don't know everything. I still learn something new pretty much every day from running this channel. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so while I set up the trigger cam 2.1 so you guys can follow me along in this adventure, we're going to talk about the first thing, and that is precision rimfires and diminishing returns, right? Or diminishing gains, or whatever you want to call it. Basically what I'm talking about is when you get into precision rimfires, especially on the lower end of the market, you're paying X amount of dollars for Y performance, right? And at a certain point, you're spending kind of like equal money to get equal amounts of performance gains, and then you hit a point where you start spending a lot more money to get minimal gains. And I think it's important to understand that because depending on what you're trying to do will depend on where you should be on that scale. Now, if I'm going to be super honest, I really think that the diminishing returns, like that, you know, kind of like the max part of that, is really the CZ457 or the Tikka T1X. I think leading up to that, the Ruger Precision Rimfire, the Savages, those kind of things, you know, they're less money, but they're less performance in one way or another. And we're not just talking about just raw accuracy, but, you know, fit, finish, quality of the rifle. And I think, you know, once you hit the CZ, you're spending, you know, equal money to get equal gain up to that point. Now, of course, you can go beyond that, and that's when you can get into Anshoots, when you can get into Voodoos, and I'm just adjusting the focus on this or trying to. And, you know, you're going to spend a lot more money to get a little bit of a gain. Now, why would you do that? Who would that be for? And I think if you're a guy or person, girl, whatever, who's just going out on your home range, like I have here, and you're just shooting targets for fun, then you don't need to do that. The CZ457, the Tikka T1X, you're going to spend good money and you're going to get good performance out of that. And that's probably all you need. Now, if you're trying to be the next Chris Simmons, the national, 2-time back-to-back national champion or something like that, then yeah, I could see warranting spending the money on the Voodoo, the Anshoots, the Rimex, those kind of things. The action feels a little bit better. You're getting a bigger, more robust action, which is going to make the rifle easier to balance. It's going to settle in better. It's going to be smoother. You know, more custom options open up. So I think really like those diminishing returns or gains, or however you want to say it, kind of stops at the 457 and the Tikka T1X. Obviously, this is my full custom 457, so this would be up there with the Voodoo and things. You know, factory barreled action with maybe a Lilja would get me probably 95% of where I need to go. And we don't know where we're going to be here. I'm shooting ammunition I've never shot before out of this rifle, some Elite 10X. So we're going to go ahead and load that up because we're also going to talk about optics a little bit. Kind of the same deal. I think if you are just a guy who likes to shoot for fun, shoot targets, you want a first focal plane scope, maybe you shoot a competition every now and again, but it is not your main intent, you know, to go out there and win titles and those kind of things. I really think $750, $800 and below is where you need to stay. Got a lot of good options in there. You got the Match Pro ED, you've got the Arkans. I have a 7 to 35 to test coming soon. But the EP5, those kind of scopes, you know, are going to do a lot for you. They are going to get you 95% of the way there, right? Obviously, we have a more expensive scope here. You guys know I run, you know, Mark IVs, tracked optics, those kind of scopes. And what those scopes are getting me is a little bit more image clarity, a little bit more image quality, because at 200 and 300 yards, that can be the difference in spotting your hit or miss. And when you're competing at a high level, you know, seeing that hit that was barely on the left edge, or seeing that miss just off right, those mean points for you. That's winning or losing. That's literally the difference. So I would say if you're going to be a competitive shooter, probably want to bump that up to around $1,500. Get yourself into those kind. Now, a lot of these guys use Zecos and scopes way above that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that if you can afford it. But I think as a competitive shooter, being at that $1,500 price point, getting into Mark IVs, tracks, you know, a scope like this even, then it will pay dividends for you. While you're paying a lot more for a little bit of performance, that little bit of performance is 100% necessary. And again, if you don't need that kind of performance, then, you know, stick with something cheaper. Let's see, we're shooting cold bore here. We're just gonna come in to probably about, let's go about 12-ish power. Those targets are at 100 yards, and we're just gonna shoot this and see. I've actually, like I said, never shot this out of it. First one's cold bore, we're gonna aim low. Ooh, yeah, that was a real cold bore there. Got spider webs all over me. All right, so the next one should be a lot tamer. Well, we're gonna see where we land here. Okay, we were low left. We're gonna come up a tenth, and wind is right to left. There we go. All right. That was just off the right. And you can see how much detail I'm able to pick up out of this. That was off left. That was off right. All right. Okay, getting real small now. And the fact that I'm using Ely 10X is a perfect segue into ammunition. I'm going to save the Barrles for the end because I want to not be shooting for that. I want to be very clear and hopefully explain it to you in a very easy to understand manner. But ammunition, you guys know it ranges all the way from a couple dollars a box all the way up to $20 a box. And what's important to know about ammunition, especially in the match ammunition, is you're paying for consistency. You're not paying necessarily for raw accuracy, right? So I could take $20 a box 10X, and I could take $14 a box Ely Team, and one random lot of Ely Team may shoot better groups for me than this more expensive box of Ely 10X. And a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around that. And that's because rimfires need to be lot tested. You know, every lot's not going to be the best in a barrel. So what you're paying for, though, is consistency. Say we had that $14 box Ely Team and $20 box Ely 10X, and they shot the same raw group size at 50 yards. And at 200 yards, you're going to be paying for the consistency of 10X. The 10X is probably going to be more consistent. You're going to have less vertical dispersion. You're going to have smaller SDs and ESs, and it's going to be overall more consistent. And that's what you're paying for. So understand, just because you bought one box of $21 box ammo and it shot like crap out of your gun, it doesn't mean really anything. Doesn't mean that that ammo is worse than the $10 box ammo that outperformed it. So, and I know it's counterintuitive, but you have to consider that. So what I tell people when they're looking for rimfire ammunition, and I'll shut up and get back to shooting here. Let's go out to 150. Let's see how that looks. So how I go about testing for it is I pick a budget and a brand. So for me, I like to shoot Ely. The silver bullet on this is easier for me to see in flight for the style of shooting I want to do. I don't need to shoot .1s at 50 yards. I'm okay shooting .3s, but I got to be able to see that bullet in flight, and that silver Ely bullet does it. So for me, I say I'm going to shoot Ely. Now I look at what I'm willing to spend, right, for consistency. For me, I usually buy team or match, stay in that $15 range box ammunition, because just can't afford to shoot $20 box ammunition all the time. So once I've figured that out, it becomes pretty easy. Now I just know I'm going to head over and I'm going to lot test both team and match, and I'm going to lot test those different lots until I find something that works well for me, and then I'm going to buy it. And it's pretty much that easy. Now a downfall I see, and something I hear a lot, is guys, especially in the comments, they'll say one brand of ammunition, I think we're empty here, you know, that it sucks. And they're talking about match ammunition, whether it's like they think Lapua sucks or Ely sucks. If you hear someone telling you just flat out one whole brand of ammunition sucks, it's probably not advice you want to take because it's just not true. So let's see here. Let's go after this guy. I think we're high. I'm gonna come down 2/10. Yeah, we're probably high. We're gonna put a, we'll come in a little bit. We're gonna put a group. We're just gonna see how this performs. I'm gonna aim there. Hopefully I'll keep that point of aim. Okay, those stacked. That's stacked. That's stacked. Wow, that is really good. Keep in mind, this is at 150 yards. Not ideal conditions, and it is just lacing them in there. Wow. Well, I guess it's a good thing we already talked about consistency because you're seeing it there. You know, maybe this doesn't shoot a stellar group at 50 yards, but consistency out there at the target, it is just stacking them. And to give you guys an idea of when I'm testing ammunition, what I'm looking for is I shoot for groups at 50, maybe 100. I look at SD and ES. Ultimately, the final decision for me is shooting out there at 150 yards on this plate, and I want to see how big that group is. So that's about 2/10 vertical dispersion, and I'm looking for that or better. So this would qualify for me as ammunition. Of course, it's $20 a box. You know, I probably wouldn't be shooting, you know, this for matches, but 2/10 at 150 yards, I think is around sub 1 inch area. So that's a 1 inch group at 150 yards, pretty good. All right, we're gonna come back into 50 because I won't need to think about this because I do want to talk about precision rifle barrels. And, you know, I get a lot of questions about Liljas, Moeller Works, gunsmiths. You know, there's all sorts of different barrel blanks out there in the precision rimfire space. And they're all good. And probably one of the most common comparison type questions I get is like somebody with a factory MTR barrel and they want to know, you know, if they should buy a Lilja, if it's going to be better. And the problematic truth of all this is with precision rifle barrels is that, you know, it's not every single barrel that a company makes, whether it's Lilja, Barrles, even Krieger, the big names, Moeller Works, not all of them perform exactly the same, right? So you're kind of like buying into a scale of performance, right? So if we had to think about it and say numbers, say from 0 to 100, let's say 457 MTR barrels range, you know, 0 being the worst, 100 being the ultimate best, like shooting one whole group every time. Let's say they range from 60 to 80 percentile, right? And you're looking at a Lilja, and let's say Liljas often range between 70 and 90 percentile. There is a possibility that you could buy a Lilja and get a Lilja that just isn't a humdinger, right? Like it's not bad, it's just not the best one they ever made. And you could be coming from an MTR that was the best one that CZ ever produced. So there is a world where that factory barrel could outperform your Lilja or whatever your aftermarket barrel is. So, and it's really easy to kind of visualize that due to the price because most of these companies are charging a fair price, you know. So it's also another deal where you're not guaranteed just because it costs twice as much to get twice as good performance out of it. You're kind of having some sort of scale there, and you need to understand that going into it. And, you know, so it's hard when I get questions where people are asking me, oh, well, what's the best barrel? Well, I can tell you, like, and I'm not slamming these guys. Krieger is very well known. I have very good luck with Krieger barrels, and I love them. I had a dud Krieger barrel. I had 2 gunsmiths try and smith it. Desert Precision Gunwork and Modicam Custom Rifle, and the barrel was just bad. The blank was bad. You know, that happens. You know, people make things, they're humans, errors happen as it was a bad batch material. It happens. So it's very hard for me to answer that. So you just need to understand that, you know, there is a little bit of a scale there, and it is possible to see something that doesn't make sense based on the money you're spending. I know that's probably a little bit of a, you know, a bad way of explaining it, but I'm trying to explain it the best way I can from the experience that I've gotten shooting these rifles over the years. All right, we're back at 50, and we're just going to shoot the KY. Actually, let's put one. Let's see where we're at. You can see this is all shot up from testing. Let's just see how close we are. We're not gonna go crazy. Let me find something. We'll go right at that number there. Okay, we're a little low. We'll send one more. Okay, so yeah, we're a tenth or two low, and maybe a little right will come up a tenth. Yeah, should be good on this. Let's see what we can do. And yeah, my range is flooded. All right, is that it? Oh boy, and we're out of ammunition. So guys, this may have opened up more questions than answers, and I understand that because we're getting really into the weeds on this. But the big takeaways, if you've made it this far, is if you're just shooting for fun, you're not trying to compete at the highest level, the 457 T1X are probably where you're gonna see the most bang for your buck. As far as optics, again, if you're that same guy, the Arkans, the Match Pro EDs, the Athlons, scopes well under that $1,000 price point are going to get you 90% of the way there, right? You're not going to be missing a ton. Now, if you're a competitor, you know, 457 with a custom barrel, or maybe even getting up to the Voodoos and Rimexes, if you're that serious, that makes perfect sense, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. They're great rifles. And as far as scope-wise, I would say the entry point to optics really does creep up there to around $1,500. Now, I'm not saying that you couldn't be competitive and go compete with cheaper stuff, with a cheaper optic, you know, with an Arkan EP5 and those kind of things. But telling you from my experience from shooting competitively in the rimfire world, seeing people shoot, shooting different scopes, that $1,500 price point does buy you into some success, because you're ultimately trying to track and see a little tiny 40 grain bullet that's not traveling very fast, doesn't have any real trace. So you have to actually see the bullet in flight, and you have to see it hit the tiniest little bit of grass or something to know what kind of correction to make at distance. And at $1,500 price point of optics is where I typically see that kind of performance. Not to say that you couldn't find something, you know, miraculously well built at a lower price point that does it, but as a generality, from what I've seen, at $1,500, that's kind of when you start seeing that level of performance. Now with barrels, aftermarket barrels are totally worth it for a lot of rifles. You can expect an increase in performance, you know, for the increase in money, pretty much typically across the board. However, keep in mind, like I said, that you're buying these in brackets, and then there is very much so the possibility of the case that you could kind of get a worst of a better barrel and have the best of a lesser barrel and have it outperform that. It's just how it is. And unfortunately, there are no hard, fast truths. In rimfire, everybody's rifle barrel is a little bit different. Your eyeballs are different than mine, so I'm open to your opinions down in the comments below. If we get a big response, I will post down in the comments, and we will set up a live stream so that we can get on the live stream and we can talk about this more personally instead of just comments. I'm definitely open to that. If you want to do that, let me know down in the comments. I will set it up in there. I will pin it. We will set up a date in the very near future, the next couple of days, and we'll get on a live stream. You guys can ask me hard questions real time. And again, look guys, it's not a sponsored video. This isn't a scripted video. I literally came out here with the intention of shooting with you guys and talking about some of this from my perspective and from my overall experience over the last couple of years. And again, I hope it's helped. We'll catch you on the next one.